Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's jump in. Captain Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the UEES Resolute. Her gaze steady as stars crawled across the main view screen. From this high above Earth, everything looked peaceful. But the sensors told another story. Something was coming. Fast. Velocity? She asked, not taking her eyes off the screen. Faster than anything we've ever tracked, Officer Khan answered, his voice tight with disbelief. It's not one of ours, Captain, and it's not slowing down. Laura didn't reply right away. Years of deep space patrols had taught her to listen before reacting. But something about this reading felt different. Too clean. Too precise. This wasn't a meteor. And it wasn't a ship lost in space. It was aimed. Get me Earth Command, she said, already knowing this moment would be remembered. This wasn't just a first contact. It was a test. Within hours, the object had decelerated and locked into a silent orbit just beyond the moon. It hovered there like a silent judge, sleek and sharp-edged, built with materials that bent the light and shimmered like quicksilver. No transmissions came, no greetings, just presence. And then, without warning, it spoke, not in sound, but in data. Lines of clean, perfect English scrolled across every major satellite, broadcast hub, and secure channel. It read, "You are now within the boundaries of the Galactic Council. Tribute is due. No warning, no diplomacy, no welcome. Just a statement. A demand." Laura stared at the message, the bridge falling into stunned silence around her. Whatever this was, whoever they were, it wasn't a greeting. It wasn't peace. And it wasn't optional. The message spread across Earth faster than light itself. Within minutes, the words were repeated on every screen. News tickers, emergency alerts, even children's school tablets. There was no mistaking the meaning, no possibility it was a prank or mistranslation. Tribute is due. Two words that changed everything. In Washington, D.C., an emergency session was called. President Martinez sat at the head of a long table surrounded by top leaders from every continent. Military generals, scientists, diplomats, intelligence analysts, all eyes were wide, all voices hushed. Tribute, the president repeated, her tone like ice cracking. What do they want from us? They haven't said, replied Frank Miller, the chief diplomat. But from what we've intercepted, they've done this before, to others. He gestured to a screen where grainy footage played of alien vessels hovering over unfamiliar planets, fleets orbiting silent cities, and species kneeling before giant machines. It always starts the same. First contact, then the demand, then the collection. A chill spread through the room, like a slow leak in the hull of a ship. Lisa Carter, one of Earth's lead linguists and xenoanalysts, stood beside a large display screen. I've been studying what little we've translated from their systems. We're not the first, not even close. There are hundreds of species in their database, each one categorized by their usefulness. She tapped the screen. Earth's profile appeared, not as a member, not as a new ally, as a resource world. The words hung in the air like smoke. They don't see us as equals, Lisa continued. They see us as a supply depot, a planet full of useful materials and labor potential, nothing more. She scrolled through data files obtained during the brief communication burst. Records not meant to be seen. On average, a world like ours gives up 30% of its total resources every solar cycle. minerals, energy, food, and people. Sometimes even people. A wave of murmurs moved across the room. President Martinez raised her hand, still calm, but tighter now. What happens if we refuse? General Mbeki of the United African Defense Coalition spoke for the first time. They say isolation, blockade, abandonment, no trade, no protection, no contact with any other civilization. He looked around the table. But that's the best case scenario. The worst is war. And if we accept? Martinez asked, quieter now. What does tribute look like over time? Lisa's fingers moved. More data appeared. Charts, timelines, broken worlds. It doesn't stop at 30%, she said. That's the opening fee. Once a world is locked in, the rate increases. Slowly, quietly. Generations pass, and soon entire planets are bled dry. Ecosystems collapse. Civilizations wither. Cultures fade. And when the world is no longer useful, she switched the screen to a single black and white photo. A dead planet, dust-covered and broken. They move on, she said. President Martinez didn't speak for a long moment. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, thick with consequence. Around the table, leaders leaned back in their chairs, staring at the ceiling, the floor, or nothing at all. The future of their species was no longer theoretical. It had a countdown. How long do we have? The president asked. Lisa looked at Frank, who gave a reluctant nod. 2 weeks. Then they expect an answer. The room broke into overlapping voices. Questions, doubts, arguments. Someone suggested stalling. Another demanded weapons testing. One leader proposed paying the tribute temporarily, just to buy time. But no one, not one person, suggested giving in without resistance. President Martinez stood. Then we have 14 days to decide whether we become servants or something else. 1,000 miles away, in an underground hangar beneath the Rocky Mountains, engineers worked through the night. Ships, once hidden from the public eye, were being fueled and armed. Reverse engineered from the few pieces of alien tech humanity had collected over the years. They were crude but powerful. No one knew if they could stand against Council warships, but they were Earth's only shot. Above them, the strange vessel remained silent in orbit, a quiet sentinel, a reminder that time was running out. Back on the UEES Resolute, Captain Bennett watched it from her command seat. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The crew moved with a new kind of focus. A quiet fire burned behind their eyes. Earth was not ready for war, but war might be coming anyway. 12 days before the deadline, a gleaming Council shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, slow and deliberate, its surface reflecting the clouds like a mirror. It landed in Geneva, Switzerland. Neutral ground for the first diplomatic meeting between Earth and the Galactic Council. The building had been repurposed in haste, the interior gutted and rebuilt with materials shipped in from 6 continents. Its walls were lined with shielding tech and hidden defense systems, though none were obvious to the naked eye. Appear weak, the president had said, but never be unarmed. Inside the newly formed Earth Diplomatic Corps, Frank Miller stood at the center of the circular conference room. At 62, he had brokered peace deals in war zones and argued treaties in front of hostile regimes. But this was new. Across the room, aides checked communication equipment while silent guards watched from the shadows. The air was thick with tension, and it wasn't just the security protocols. Everyone knew this wasn't a conversation. It was an audition. The door opened. 3 beings stepped through. And once again, Earth was reminded just how small it was in the galaxy. The first was Zelf, the reptilian. Towering and sharp-eyed, his scales glinted like oil, shifting from green to indigo as he walked. His presence was immediate, like a predator entering a room full of prey. The second, Zizix, moved with the chittering grace of an insect, compound eyes flickering with data no human could see. And the third, Tavel, looked almost human, his skin silver, his features symmetrical and perfect. His presence was the most dangerous of all. He knew how to smile. Frank stepped forward, measured and calm. On behalf of Earth, welcome. We are honored by your visit. Honor, Zelf said, with something close to amusement, has nothing to do with it. His voice rasped like gravel under pressure. Tavel stepped in. You have developed faster than light travel. This places you under Galactic Council jurisdiction. You are now a Level 2 civilization, and thus eligible for membership. The words fell like a boulder in the room. Everyone had expected flowery language, introductions, pleasantries. But this was a decree. Lisa Carter, standing beside Frank with a datapad in hand, spoke. We appreciate the opportunity. Could you explain what membership involves? Tavel didn't miss a beat. Protection, access to trade routes, scientific advancement, cultural exchange. You would be a part of something far greater than yourselves. And in return? Lisa asked. Resources, said Zizix, in a voice made of overlapping clicks and synthetic tones. Standard exchange rate, 30% of planetary yield. Energy, minerals, agriculture, periodic personnel exchange as needed. Someone at the table flinched. Frank kept his voice steady. That is, a significant portion. It is generous, Zelf cut in. Most pay more. We offer you a discount because we see potential. A clever, adaptable species. A useful one. Useful. Not equal. The word hung in the air like a blade, its edge invisible but undeniable. President Martinez, joining by secure hollow from a secure facility beneath NORAD, leaned forward in her chair. You're asking for a third of our planet's resources, every year. And if we decline? Zelf's smile was thin and cold. Isolation. You will be alone. No trade. No support. If danger comes, you will face it without aid. Your species will drift and fall behind. Tavel spoke more gently, as if wrapping poison in honey. But there is no need for hostility. You are standing at the edge of a new age. The Council has stood for 50,000 years. We offer you stability, guidance, safety. Frank glanced down at his notes, then back at the 3 figures. And how many other worlds have said yes? Thousands, Zizix said. And how many have said no? There was a pause. None, Tavel answered. Silence followed, heavy, thick with meaning. Lisa exchanged a look with Frank. No world had ever refused, which meant they had no playbook for what Earth might do next. The Council representatives rose from their seats. Tavel's silver eyes fixed on Frank. You have until the next full rotation of your moon to respond. And then they were gone. As the heavy doors closed, the Earth delegation sat in stunned quiet. No one needed to speak. They all felt the same pressure, the weight of time, the clock that had begun ticking the moment that alien ship entered their orbit. Frank finally broke the silence. They don't want partners. They want property. Lisa nodded, and they assume we'll fold like everyone else. He looked toward the sealed door. Let's make sure we don't. 3 hours after the meeting, the Earth delegation was back in their secure facility under the Alps. This time, there were no speeches, no press conferences, no posturing. The doors were sealed, and the only sound in the room was the soft hum of encrypted equipment and the low murmur of strategists speaking in clipped, tense tones. Lisa Carter moved quickly through the narrow halls, a tablet pressed against her chest, her face pale but focused. She wasn't part of Earth's traditional chain of command. Until 2 weeks ago, she was a senior analyst at a language institute in Cambridge. Now she was at the heart of humanity's greatest crisis. She entered the data lab, where a single, secure terminal glowed in the darkness. Frank was already there, standing beside Dr. Samantha Jones, a cryptographer and systems expert who had been working non-stop since the Council's arrival. Lisa handed her the tablet. "It's confirmed," she said, breathless. "The data we pulled during the handshake link, before they closed access, it wasn't just protocol records or membership documents. It was a full registry." Samantha tapped the tablet's screen, pulling up a long list of planetary names. Some were familiar, nearby systems mapped by Earth's own telescopes. Others were alien, labeled in a strange angular script, but translated by machine learning. Every single world under Council jurisdiction, Lisa said. All of them classified, not by culture or history, not by government type or population. Frank leaned closer. Then how? By value, Samantha said grimly. Each planet is tagged with a number, a yield rating, a resource index, and a designation. She tapped one file. Earth's Resource World 3721. There was no mention of sovereignty, no note of humanity's culture, potential, or contributions. Just raw material assessments, water volume, mineral deposits, agricultural capacity. Even population density was logged under labor potential. Frank stared at the screen. We're not joining a community. We're being enrolled in a supply chain. Lisa nodded. And it gets worse. She opened a secondary document. It was fragmented. Some parts damaged, others scrambled. But enough had been reconstructed. These so-called tribute agreements, they're not temporary. Some planets have been paying for over 200 Earth years. There's no end date, no appeal, just extraction. Images appeared, satellite shots of barren landscapes, reports of collapsing biospheres, notes in alien script about resource exhaustion and economic failure, world after world, used up and left behind. Samantha scrolled down further. We found audit logs. Council enforcement ships visit these worlds every cycle. If quotas aren't met, punishments are imposed. Infrastructure is seized. Orbiting satellites are shut down. Sometimes even atmospheric controls are removed. Frank rubbed his face slowly, trying to ground himself. Why share this with us at all? Why not hide it? They didn't think we'd look, Lisa said. They handed us access as a gesture of transparency, assuming we'd never crack their internal files. Or maybe they didn't care. Maybe they thought we'd be too scared to ask questions. Frank was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. We have to show this to the president. Back in D.C., President Martinez reviewed the files in silence, the glow of the screen casting hard shadows across her face. Around the room sat a dozen of the world's most powerful leaders, connected via secure satellite feeds, each one briefed, each one processing the same truth. "This is colonization," she said finally, hidden behind soft words and ceremonial uniforms. The German chancellor leaned forward. 30% is only the start. The real cost is our future. "And if we accept now," added the Indian Prime Minister, "we'll never be able to walk it back. Once we begin paying, they own the pace. They own everything." "Then what do we do?" asked a voice from the back of the room. No one answered right away. Not because they didn't know, but because the truth of it was finally sinking in. Lisa Carter was the one who broke the silence. "We don't have to fight them. Not yet, not openly, but we need to prepare." President Martinez nodded. "Agreed. Mobilize defenses under the guise of planetary drills. Begin scaling space fleet readiness. Accelerate construction on the new orbital platforms." "We'll need a plan for cyber warfare," Frank added. "Their systems are advanced, but not invulnerable. We've already found weaknesses. We need to build a team to exploit them." "And we'll need a message," Martinez said, "a statement of refusal. Strong enough to make our position clear. Simple enough that they can't twist it." Lisa didn't hesitate. "One word," she said. "Just one." President Martinez looked at her. "Go on." "No. That's all we need to say. Not a negotiation. Not a plea. Just a boundary. Drawn in the sand." Outside the secure room, the sky was darkening. Somewhere beyond the moon, the council ship hovered like a predator waiting for a signal. Inside, Earth's leaders began to prepare. They had 12 days left. 12 days to build a response. 12 days before the storm. 12 days later, the United Nations Hall in New York stood at full capacity. Every seat was filled. World leaders, military commanders, scientists, diplomats. The atmosphere was electric, but quiet. Beneath the surface, there was tension so thick it felt like gravity itself had increased. Outside the grand windows, high above the city skyline, 3 council warships hovered in low orbit, visible to the naked eye. Their presence cast long, unnatural shadows over Earth's surface, a reminder that this was not just a meeting, it was a moment of decision. Captain Laura Bennett stood in the hallway outside the main chamber, her uniform crisp, her expression unreadable. In her hand was a small, folded piece of paper. Just one word was written on it. President Martinez approached. She didn't speak at first. She simply looked at Laura and gave a single nod. "Are you ready?" Laura returned the nod. "Yes, Madam President." "You know the risks." "I know," Laura said, "but I also know who we are." The doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, silence fell as the 3 council representatives entered. Zelf, the reptilian, led the way, his claws tapping against the marble floor. Zizix followed, compound eyes scanning every movement. Tavel came last, his silver skin shimmering under the lights, face as unreadable as always. They moved to the front of the hall, standing tall above the seated Earth delegation. No introduction was given. No pleasantries exchanged. Zelf spoke first. The time for discussion is over. You have reviewed the terms. We require your response. President Martinez stood but did not speak. Instead, she gestured to Laura. Captain Bennett walked to the podium, the single paper in her hand now unfolded. She looked out across the sea of faces. Leaders who had risked everything, soldiers who had trained for weeks in silence, scientists who had worked day and night preparing defenses they might never use. She looked at the council representatives who stared back, confident in their superiority. Then she read the word. No. The sound of it was sharper than any weapon. The entire hall was silent, as if reality itself paused to hear what came next. Zelf blinked once, slowly. Is there more to your answer? Laura folded the paper and placed it back into her uniform. No. Zizix's mandibles clicked nervously. Tavel's expression remained calm, but his voice faltered slightly. You understand what this means, Captain Bennett. Refusal will place your world outside the protections of the Council. We understand, President Martinez replied, and we're not afraid. Zelf took a step forward, eyes narrowing. Perhaps you don't understand the consequences. Without the Council's trade networks, your technology will stagnate. Without our defense fleet, your species will be vulnerable to the threats that stalk the outer void. You will stand alone. Laura didn't move. We don't stand alone. She nodded once to a technician standing at the rear of the hall. A giant screen behind the council representatives lit up. What they saw made them go still. Dozens of Earth ships, more than had ever been shown publicly, hovered in perfect formation beyond the moon. They were larger than the original fleet, upgraded, sharp-edged, glowing with energy, signatures reverse-engineered from council tech. And they weren't alone. Behind them, in coordinated positions, floated ships that didn't belong to Earth at all. Sleek vessels with unfamiliar silhouettes, crews from alien worlds, banners not of the Council, but of the Alliance. 12 worlds, united by Earth's defiance. Tavel's composure slipped. This is impossible. How did you? We asked, Laura said simply, and others were ready to say no too. All they needed was someone to say it first. Zelf stepped back. His voice lowered. This changes nothing. The Council will not tolerate defiance. President Martinez stood fully now. Then the Council has a decision to make. Leave our system in peace, or start a war you may not survive. Zizix's mandibles twitched in frustration. You cannot win. We already did, Martinez said. We're not afraid of isolation. We've lived with it for most of our history. But we won't live in chains. Not for another planet. Not for another empire. And not for you. The Council representatives looked at each other. For the first time, they weren't in control. Finally, Tavel stepped forward. His voice was low, controlled, but hollow. We will report your decision to the Council's leadership. This matter is not concluded. He turned. The others followed. No final threats, no promises, just silence. As the heavy doors closed behind them, the chamber remained still. And then, slowly, the sound of applause began. Quiet at first, then building. A roar rose through the hall and across the world as Earth, for the first time in its history, had spoken to the stars not with fear, but with strength. Outside, the alien ships lifted off and disappeared beyond Earth's orbit. Whether they would return with peace or war, no one could say. But humanity had given its answer. And now, the galaxy was listening.